Let's get it on. Interview with Kieran, the founder and CEO of Illuvium, with Sam Stefania right here. He's a Web3 influencer. And I think they're going to talk about, I think they say it in the beginning.
Kieran Warwick. I'm here with Kieran. He decided to sit down with us and answer some of the burning questions that the community has. Really appreciate Kieran's time.
Yeah, I think they're going to talk about Web3 in general, but mostly about Illuvium and other stuff concerning Kieran and the whole space.
I mean, I just want to be clear off the jump, like we're all rooting for Illuvium to succeed. I think it's great for the space if they do. And all these questions come from a place of just wanting to do our due diligence.
Sorry, I'm not going to pause too much, but I really like this intro, and I think we need more of this like positive vibes where it's not the Web3 projects competing against each other, hating on each other, like nitpicking on little mistakes to like point out failures, but trying to succeed together. Because if Illuvium succeeds, Web3 in general will be better off as well.
And being excited about the product, but also wanting to look forward and have it be a sustainable future. So Kieran, thanks so much for joining us. I kind of want to kick off with the community unhappiness. The community seems to be kind of divided into two from what I can tell as sort of an outsider looking in. Can you just kind of share like your high level thoughts on why you think the community feels this way and sort of your current approach in stemming that bleeding, for lack of a better way of putting it?
Yeah, for sure. So we've been building for nearly 4 years now, and there's been a lot of hype around Illuvium. There's been, over that 4-year period, we were pretty much, there was like CryptoKitties, and there was Axie, and then there was pretty much us building. So there wasn't much in the space. And so there's been a lot of people that have been holding on, waiting for a really, really good quality game to launch. And I think it's two parts. The first one is we're still in open beta, and we've still got a ton of features to deliver in order to make all three games really feel like they're able to compete with typical mainstream games. And I think the second one is the market sentiment right now. Like there isn't many games out there that'll tell you, hey, we're loving where the market is and it's awesome to, for our token price and whatever. And so while we don't focus on token price too much and we just focus on building, it is a reality of our space. And investors that have put money in are at a point where sentiment around crypto is down, sentiment around NFTs is like the lowest it could possibly be. And then you've got crypto gaming, which is this combination of the finance crypto side of it and the NFT side of it. And it's like a complete bloodbath. And, we're caught up in that. And so I think when you put those two things together, and there was so much hype behind us, and someone looks at it and says, well, they generated, only 750,000 in their first month. We thought it would be 10 million. What's going on? You can see where the frustration lies. And so I think that's, a little bit where this is coming from.
Thanks so much for that.
By the way, I think 750,000 in the current market state that we're at is great. And compared to other Web3 spaces, Web3 projects, considering all the factors, right, that we're still in open beta, there still is a lot of polishing, delivering to do, and a lot of features, and the market is in the condition that it is right now.
I heard some people suffering a little bit with even high-end graphics cards. They're sort of struggling with the performance, and I know sometimes that optimization is one of the last things that gets worked on.
From my side, I have a high-end graphics card. Game is going really smooth. I can stream or record while I'm playing. So yeah, mid-end graphics cards where the problem lies.
For obvious reasons. Is that the case here, or can you explain why maybe some of the graphical limitations with Overworld are happening?
Yeah, so this was probably the biggest learning and one of our biggest mistakes throughout the last 4-year journey that we've been on. we wanted to build AAA graphics, something that had really never been done in the Monster Hunter genre, and certainly not in the auto battler genre. And we achieved that. The issue with going that far with the fidelity and the graphics is the accessibility for people is super low, right? Like you need to have a really good machine in order to be able to play our games. And what we thought was we would be able to optimize it, and we'd get to a stage where even low performing graphics cards won't have an issue playing the game. But the reality is it's not the case. And so what we need to do and what we're looking to do is optimize the graphics about 50%. So low end machines, they're not going to be able to play it on high spec. Like we're not even pretending that that's going to be the case, but they'll at least be able to enjoy the gameplay, and it's not going to be, low frame rate, and they're still going to be able to enjoy the detail that we've gone into with the characters. And that's going to be a bit of a process now, which is unbelievably frustrating because I think not going mobile with either Arena or Overworld has cut out probably 75% of the market that's in crypto, as in natives, which is tough. But then you add on top of that even desktop users were cutting out of what's left, maybe another 50%. It's a pretty bad call when you add all of that up.
Yeah. Do you have any sense for when optimization for PC might be available, and when the market for mobile might be able to get their hands on it? Is there a reasonable timeline that you can share with us, or is it just sort of it's done when it's done?
Yeah, so we're pretty hesitant to come out with dates and timelines on these things. I would say the ideal time period would be early next year, at some time, maybe even Q1, maybe if we can't get there, Q2 next year, where we have Arena fully functional on mobile. And part of that, the first step of that is to optimize the graphics for mobile, which is in turn going to make it better for desktop as well. So it's kind of like a two-step process for us to complete that. And so I would say the desktop experience in the next 3 to 6 months, you should see a big difference where someone who wasn't able to play should be able to start playing. And then the final step there is once we have those optimized assets, we just need to port them over to mobile.
And if I'm only able to play Arena on my phone, I can still have if I stumble into the game on the iOS store, I can still have a pretty fully fledged experience just touching Arena, or will I still need to be able to have a PC that I can do certain things on in order to kind of make the system work?
No, you'll be good. So the way that we built our ecosystem is there's obviously a gameplay loop between all three. If you start off in Zero, you can generate fuel. You take that fuel, you go into the overworld, you capture your creatures. You then take your creatures into Arena and you start battling. That's the full loop. But by no means you can do one of those games. You can play two of those games. You don't need to play all three. And so we've got many people that are just into the Arena. They love the auto battler, and that's all they do. And you could easily do that on mobile.
Awesome.
By the way, try to not read down there because we always see the full text that it's going to be shown. And it's kind of like, I don't know, it's like a spoiler in the text. Personally, I try to just focus now on their faces. But yeah, that's really good. I think Kieran says it all. I love how concise he's keeping his answers and really straight to the point. And yeah, once we get Arena onto mobile and maybe even one day Overworld, that's going to be huge. And in this process of getting into mobile, we're also going to optimize the PC, the desktop version. And yeah, that's amazing news. That's gonna help Illuvium so much.
Awesome.
Web3 is mostly a lot of the audience comes from poorer countries where you cannot afford a PC. That's why mobile gaming in Web3 is so big.
Yeah, thanks for the clarity there. Speaking of the core sort of game loop, requiring people to spend money on fuel if they haven't farmed enough in the Forex game. I'm sorry, I'm mixing up the names. It's 7 a.m. here, so I'm a little bit on the
No worries, all good.
best. But I'm curious, you were quoted as saying that you think it costs about $30 a month to like really have the full experience of Illuvium. And I'm curious if you are planning on balancing that monetization.
It's not $30 anymore, right? We can do stage 1 runs for what, 20 cents or something. So yeah, you can play all month long with $5 or whatever it is. Yeah, $30 is more on the deep end, on the higher end of things, I think now.
At all after this initial
because fuel price dropped so much
launch period, or if you're pretty happy with the current state of it, and if you are planning on balancing it, like if you have any ideas of what that might look like at this stage.
Like the highest stage run in Overworld, it used to be $10 on launch, and now it's like what, less than $3. It's maybe between $1 and $3, something like that price.
So it's been pretty surprising, honestly. Like the way that we looked at the Overworld was you are going and buying a pack of cards. Those cards, instead of just being physical cards that you hold and there's nothing else that you can do with them, we wanted to build experiences around that, sort of like a theme park, right? So you have the arena over here. There'll be multiple other games where you can build, that will build. And if you buy the pack of cards, you can go and play, you can go and enjoy all of those rides. Now, I think what we underestimated is people don't like, because, and I think it's a couple of things here, but people aren't enjoying the fact that every time they go into the Overworld, they need to pay a little bit of money to get in there. And that to us is you're paying to go and pick up your deck of cards like you would go into a GameStop and you would pick up a packet of Pokemon cards, except we're saying there's all these experiences that you can get from doing that. But what we underestimated is, I think maybe because it's digital and not physical, people are like, whoa, you can't charge me for every single time that I'm getting stuff. And we're like, but you're getting stuff, right? Like that's the content that you're getting.
And it's so funny to me because I think the best example is Hearthstone, right? Hearthstone, totally Web2 game. All of the cards you get are digital assets. The only difference is you don't own them. They're not your NFTs. You don't own any of them. You can't do anything outside playing with them. You cannot sell them. You cannot trade them. You cannot buy them on a marketplace. But in Hearthstone, it's so normal that you go and buy a pack of cards like it is with physical cards where you buy a pack of cards. And I think just because people are so used to buying card packs and whatever it is, loot boxes and so on, that it's so normalized. But suddenly now here, you have the same card opening, but it's gamified. But suddenly the people compare it with, I don't know what it is, Pokemon and so on, where you don't have to pay for it. So they kind of compare it with an RPG game or whatever you want to call it, where you don't have to pay every run, and they forget that it's actually a gamified card opening where you always have to pay to get your cards. But this time you actually get a little bit of gameplay and a little bit more of an experience with it.
And it wasn't a matter of we didn't think about this either, right? Like we had the assumption that some people are going to say, well, why can't I play the game and at least get used to it? And this is what I think isn't really getting through to a lot of people, but there's free-to-play content in every single one of our games. In Overworld, about 35% of the content is free, right? It doesn't cost you anything. There's literally 65 characters, which is probably more than most games out there anyway, creatures, unique, that you can go and capture and won't cost you anything, right? Now, in Arena, literally everything is free apart from one game mode where you can bring in your own alluvials, and you don't have to do that. The ranked mode isn't even that. That's just a game for whales to say, I want to go and capture all of the the high-powered alluvials, and I want to battle people and flex that I've got more money than you. Single game. So, and then Zero, a little bit tough. We sold NFTs, and so the only way for you to generate revenue from that is by owning one of these NFTs. But there's still a fully fledged free-to-play version. You can download it on the App Store. We've got like 15,000 people that are playing this free-to-play version. Won't cost you anything. So you say this to people and they're like, wow, actually, that's actually quite reasonable. And if you went out to mainstream gamers, I think they would actually say, you know what, like this actually makes sense. Where it falls down is I don't think that gamers inside of Web3 are necessarily looking, their first priority is usually, not everyone, but usually I want to make money. Now the issue is if you allow anyone to go in and get free to play content, there's going to be bots. There's going to be a massive saturation of people who own those characters. But then they don't have any value. So the Web3 person who's looking for value, profit, whatever you want to call it, is like, well, the good parts of the game are pay to play. And it's like, yeah, but you're getting all of this other content. You can walk into the arena, play it. You get the characters given to you for free. You can go into the overworld, collect these 65 characters. That's all free. And it's like, yeah, but I don't want those because they don't have any value. And then you start to get to the crux of the issue. And it's kind of like, so you just want the valuable stuff and you don't want to have to pay for it, or you would rather pay less or less frequently. And that's sort of what we're realizing. And, you know, you think about, okay, how do you solve that? Would people feel better if they bought like an access pass to the overworld where they could get anything, but it means that they need to pay a monthly subscription? And honestly, psychologically, now that we've got the data and we've received a lot of feedback, I think they would. Even if they paid the exact amount in a subscription as they would as these micro transactions, we're talking 20 cents, 30 cents to go and do these runs, they would feel better with paying. I pay my subscription, I get as many alluvials as I want, even though it's the exact same outcome. So that's a big learning for us.
Yeah, it's a great one. Paul Bettner uses the term, he's the only person I've heard use this. He says it's like whenever you pinch the user, and that people just feel bad every time they get pinched, and that results in exactly what you're talking about. I want to talk about the arena battler for a second. People have...
I think it's a nice concept. It's just going to be kind of weird for everybody who has been used to the old concept of... I think people will catch on to it. Explained, it's a good system if you really look it through and if you really see all the details and all the nuances to it. And I think people will realize that, yeah, if you want to have if you want to find expensive alluvials, you have to pay something up front. You can't get them for free. Otherwise, people are just going to come in with bots and extract value. And that's a good thing about Illuvium, that the whole ecosystem is built in a way where people cannot just extract money for playing it for free, except maybe for the airdrop campaign, but that's a limited event. So yeah, I think it's a safe economy that Illuvium has built by not being able or not allowing free-to-play users to extract value from the project.
Said that it's a solved game at this point, and part of their issue is that like people are just kind of trying to get the best setup because they know it'll win every single game. Is that, when they say that, are they only talking about the whale game that you're talking about, like that version of the game mode, or is this solved from every kind of way that you look at it and needs to be balanced in order to add some more competition and complexity to it at this point?
Again, I have a hard time adding anything to Kieran because he says it really, really well. But just to answer his question from my perspective as a active, I think it's far from solved. Maybe the survival was kind of solved, because before we had the dynamic survival, you would always have the same team for everybody, so you could solve it in a day together, and then it was solved at the end of the day. But Gauntlet isn't solved. We see that in TFT, right? It's pretty much heavily inspired by TFT. TFT isn't solved. We have to do some balancing, so it's not so much dominant metas, and we can play different compositions. But I think Gauntlet is great. There is a decent amount of skill expression. Ascendant Arena isn't solved. It's a thing of balancing, right? But there is a lot of things that you can decide in every game still with augment selections and a lot of randomness coming in. I think the player agency needs to be higher. There needs to be more skill expression, but it's far from being solved. And even if it would be solved, which you could maybe say for survival, and you can definitely say that about chess. Chess is a solved game. People still love it, right? As long as there is enough decision making, enough ways where you can make a decision that is good, so it proves that you're a better player, and enough decisions where people can make the wrong decisions. And if you're a worse player, you make wrong decisions, you lose. And if you're a good player, you have a lot of decisions you can make that if you make perfect decisions, you will win. And we're getting there. I think we're in a good track to that. We definitely need more of that, though.
No, so that was the previous version of Arena, which we've overhauled. The overhauled version is called Gauntlet, and what that game mode does is...
What is meant by solved? Basically, as I interpret it, I like to explain it with chess, because chess, you can sit an AI and always find the best move. Like an AI can play chess perfectly, right? A human player can never win versus AI, because it's a solved game. There's always going to be the ideal move that you can make. And that was kind of the case in survival, where it was not dynamic survival. Everybody had the same deck. So if a few people come together, or if you share screenshots, then you could have a solved way to wave 40, for example, which is not the case anymore. Now everybody has to figure it out themselves. A really good AI could still dominate it, but that will be the case in most strategy games.
Introduces a ton of RNG, which takes away... There's still a lot. It's still in alpha, and we literally only started building that game about 4, maybe 5 months ago. So it's got a lot of work in terms of balancing, but that feeling of everyone has the same cards, and one composition of those cards is better than another. So I'm just going to play those cards. Everyone's got them. Why wouldn't I play the most powerful cards? That was Arena, the original one, and it fucking sucked. Right? I hated playing it. I liked it for like the first 2-3 days, and then I was like, "This is dog shit." Like,
I think I hear that sentiment a lot from him and from the higher ups in Illuvium, but I think Ascendant Arena is great. Overall, I think we're not there yet where we need to be, but I think we did a great start. As I say many times, Ascendant Arena is a new game genre that Illuvium has invented, combining team fight tactics and auto battle elements with card game elements, and they've put it together, creating something new. And for that, I think we did really well. But yeah, the other day we watched the Viper video where he goes over things that we need to improve in order to make it better. Basically, it's all around giving the player more small decisions that he has to make, so then there can be more skill expression through those decisions. For example, not getting legendary augments, which is either you get a good one, you insta-win, you get a bad one, you insta-lose. RNG, you have no influence. Or and instead of that, getting like small parts of augments, and you have to combine those augments to make better ones, and you have to decide which items you're basically building with those augment components. Basically like in TFT, where you have those item components and you combine them. You can combine them in different ways to make different items and stuff like this. But I think we're on a great way towards that. I really hope that Ascendant Arena doesn't get ignored by the team, and they're still trying to work on it, and it's not going to be all focused on Gauntlet. Because I think Ascendant Arena has great potential, and I've been playing it for months, and it was amazing. On some patches, it was a lot of fun. The patch where we had were Arcanite, Invoker, Berserkers, and all of that stuff was playable and was a little bit like rock, paper, scissors, but you could still win even though your team was countered and stuff like this. I really like that. I like Ascendant because it's unique. We can pioneer something here. Yes, I agree. And I think they did a really good job for creating something new. And I think with a little bit like of a rework, overhaul, maybe not right now. Right now we need to focus on Gauntlet, on something that we know we can get in a really good state fast. But in the long run, I think Ascendant Arena can become something amazing.
Every single game that I play is against the exact same mirror composition.
Sorry, and also a big problem in Ascendant was you can just reposition for free all the time, and it's blind positioning. You don't see the enemy's positioning. So it's always like a coin flip. If he's left, I win. If he goes also right, I lose. So it's like a 50-50. That also felt really bad. But then we can stop with blind positioning. We can make positioning cost more, so you cannot reposition your whole team. Also, you cannot sell your whole team, bring in another team that you brought. Basically, just again, polarizing, going for the 50-50. And stuff like this just needs to change. But I think we're on a great way. I think, yeah, Ascendant Arena has great potential. And the problem with playing versus the exact same mirror composition, we didn't have that in every patch we had. We have it right now. We had it for a long time, for the last few months. But there was patches where there was 3, maybe 4, maybe 5 different decks viable and playable. And when we had this, I think Ascendant Arena was amazing. And I think everybody who competed back there when we had the top 1000 leaderboard rewards would agree with me.
Like, I hate this game, you know? And so then
Skill issue.
Internally, we were like, we got to fix it. We got to fix it. And finally, we drew a line in the sand and said, you know what? Like, let's introduce RNG. Let's introduce more social aspects to the game. Instead of it just being 1v1, it's now 8-player battle royale. So you go around and you play each person. Someone's going to get lucky, which means even if the balancing isn't perfect.
I think there's less RNG now in Gauntlet, the TFT copy, than it was in Ascendant, which is a good thing. There can be some RNG in this siding. If you get a legendary augment, you win. If you get a bad one, you lose. That's not a good way. And that we still have that in Gauntlet. It's a problem in both game modes.
Which it's definitely not yet. We need to.
We can solve the meta and mirrors by banning 3 Illuvios per player. Yeah, that's one way to do it. There's a bunch of ways to do it, I think. Also, we haven't had a balance patch in forever. If we Dust, which is dominating the leaderboards since months, if we nerf Dust, if we nerf or just nerf Gyro and Gazotep, the main 2 issues, maybe Revenant, you know, maybe Rogues need a nerf. Like if we played around more with balancing, I think we could go again, and we could come to a better meta again. But balancing has not been any priority of the team. Rightfully so, because it was more about polishing, shipping features, and so on. But yeah, balancing will help a lot. Maybe introducing stuff like banning, not blind positioning, splitting the augments up in more smaller decision making instead of just rolling big augments, stuff like this.
To work on that, you're still going to get a situation where even if you want the best composition, the luck might not fall your way and you might not get it. And that makes the game so much more exciting. I love playing this version of the game, but it's still an alpha. And so we've got like probably another 6 months before we get to the stage.
1 second. I need to quickly ban my biggest fan right here. If I block him here, is he also gonna be blocked from chatting? I hope so. All right, let's get back to the video. Don't need to listen to the haters.
Stage where I think we can genuinely compete with the likes of a Teamfight Tactics or a Dota Underlords.
Nice. Awesome, man. I'm excited to hear that because, yeah, that RNG is really what makes the system kind of work, in my opinion. It is interesting that...
But yeah, to quickly address the haters in the chat, there should not be balancing until the Ranger is implemented. That is true, and that's why I say it was for the team, rightfully so, to focus on balancing so far. But I think once we start balancing, we can even with the current system, get to a way better place already. And yeah, I cannot wait for Ranger to be implemented. But I was talking about Ascendant Arena, and he's talking about Gauntlet right here, where the Ranger is still missing.
That people still play competitive Pokemon where realistically you can get, oh, as my dog trips on my camera wire, people still play competitive Pokemon all the time where you can get the perfect composition, but then it's about countering, and it's like, I got, lightning and you got water or whatever, so you're done. So there's still a place in which that can fit in, but I agree with you. I think the auto battler stuff has to kind of fit in this RNG world, whether we like it or not. Regarding the overworld, you guys are still sort of facing criticism around how it feels a bit empty. And I think specifically in the Jawan video, he sort of framed it as this was a conscious choice that you guys were making to make things more scarce and to kind of give people a reason to stick around and to hunt more for resources, but that ended up making the experience pretty boring.
John video, it makes me always laugh when I think about it. When he's like standing in the not hot zone, where you need to use your heat map, that's where all the assets are, and he's like standing in nowhere, and he's like, there is nothing here, but he's just in the wrong space. It's really funny.
What are you doing to sort of combat that, and how much of it is conscious of like, well, we want it to be scarce so that people aren't getting all the resources in an afternoon and then AFKing for a month or only playing one of the other games, and how much of it is just, I don't know, system requirements, or we haven't finished the assets, or we're still in beta? What's kind of the hold up there?
No, so we need to make the higher tier, higher staged creatures more rare than the common ones, right? It's the exact same situation as Pokemon. If you went into Pokemon or Monster Hunter or whatever, any of these RPGs where you're collecting things and you got the most powerful stuff immediately, you're probably going to leave that game pretty quickly. Now, we had an issue at the start where things were way too hard to find, and someone like me didn't find it exciting. I'm pretty impatient, I would say. And for me, I don't mind spending a lot of money, but I want to see those higher stage things a lot more often. And the way that we did it was the way that the economy team set it up was they wanted people to progress through fusion. That's getting the lesser alluvials, grinding and fighting a ton of different battles, getting up to a certain stage, fusing together. Then you get stage 2 of it. Go and do that with 3 stage 2s, fuse them together, get a stage 3. Now, that for me is like cancer. I'm like, get away from me, right? Now, having said that, there's a lot of people, when I said, look, I'm playing the game, this is nowhere.
You're gonna need some PR training. I don't think you should say cancer in interviews.
What we had in the test environment, and the economy team were like, oh yeah, we changed it so it's a lot rarer because we want people to spend, hours and hours going through this process because of the lack of content in terms of like storyline quests, social aspects, multiplayer, combat, like all of the things that we're building right now and planning to ship, they were trying to make up for through this really grindy type of progression way. And I haven't seen the Dwan video, to be completely honest with you. It is on my list. I only just got back from overseas. But I would imagine he's maybe a type of player that's more similar to me, where if you've gone 10 times into a region and you're seeing nothing but, lower stage alluvials, it's kind of like, well, how much do I need to spend until I get there? Instead of saying, well, you know what, I'll just get these shittier ones, fuse them together, and then I'll eventually get up there. But for me, I'm like, that just seems crappy. I don't know. There's something about fusing it where I'm like, it's not pure. I want to see the best character in the game and go, holy God, I found it. That moment, that streamable moment, it just didn't exist. It literally, we had it at like 1,000 times rarer than it was meant to be. And so we brought that right back in line. And the last patch, which went out about 2 weeks ago, is much better. So I don't know when he stopped playing, but I would say that that's played into that. And the fact of all the things that I just said, there's so much missing from the overworld. It's very hard to make that game feel like you, without like sort of the economic side, there's not much there in terms of like content for you to get attached to yet.
Yeah, so what are some of the things that you guys are looking to add to it, or what about the economic side do you think is really gonna...
By the way, I feel like I should address why I instantly banned him. If he comes in right here, you still see it on screen, right? The chat should not be balancing until the range is implemented. Like, I'm always happy to have criticism. I love if somebody like gives me something to discuss with and to talk about, but it's got to be in good faith. It's got to be respectful. But if you come in and the first thing you say is, man, your lack of vision, you lack vision so much, it's not even funny. And it's obviously not the first time he's like personally attacking me a lot, because we had some disputes in the past. So since he's just very hateful towards me, always very attacking my character and whatever, I just don't want to put energy in that, and I just insta-ban people like that. I don't mind if somebody is not agreeing or doesn't like what I'm saying or whatever, but I think we can all agree on that we have to stay respectful with each other. Otherwise, I don't know. I won't sit in a toxic environment purposely. I'm just gonna change that. It just sucks the energy out of me. All right, back to the video.
I think shift the way that people are perceiving that environment, that game.
Yeah, so one of the things that we're discussing right now and ideating, which is, it's a little bit new and so not set in stone yet, but I'm happy to talk about it, is more of like a co-op version of the game that's almost like a story mode, but not like a complete immersion story mode that is completely free to play. And the idea is you get to know the characters. They, you're going to go through a whole bunch of battles. You can bring in friends to play with, and all of a sudden you can learn about the storyline because you're coming up against different battles and NPCs that you need to beat. You beat them, they give you a little bit of storyline, a little bit of lore, and you continue on. And you do it with your group of friends. It's a lot more social. It feels a lot more like your typical RPG. That's one idea that we have that we can implement fairly quickly. And then outside of that, what is definitely happening, what we're already in development for, is NPC quests. So when you're going into the overworld, instead of it just being mine shards or collect alluvials, it'll be that plus see an NPC over there, go talk to him. He says, hey, go and collect all of these things, come back to me. And then he might say, oh, hey, I'm going to battle you now. And you fight him, and then he drops some random loot for you and says a whole bunch of stuff that helps you understand, like, what is Illuvium? What am I? Who are these rangers that are running around? So that's one thing. Multiplayer, so you'll be able to go into our home base and you'll be able to talk to friends and say, like, what are you guys doing? Like, which guild are you in? You can join factions. So bringing more of that social aspect, that's in development. And
can't wait for that. Especially, like, also, I think one of the biggest points for me is that you also have, like, your favorite Illuvial, your bonded Illuvial, right? I'm running around with my world first Rampfire next to me, and there's other people running around with a Seer, with a Axodon, their favorite Illuvials, and then you can challenge them for battle, do stuff like that in Sanctum Mesa. That's going to be huge. I saw some people giving away free hate. I love the term free hate, mostly on Discord, but yeah, that's life. We can only control ourselves. Exactly. Like, I'm not going to get mad about it. I don't feel bad about him, or I have no negative feelings really about him. I just try to distance myself from it, because I think it's just gonna take away my energy if I interact with people that are just trying to incite and just get a reaction out of me and just be hateful and toxic for no other reason than they want attention and stuff like that.
Also, combat. So right now it's the auto battler. That's going to change to a hybrid version where some things you go into the auto battler, some things it's literal more exciting hand-to-hand combat.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah, so you alluded to a tutorial a couple of different times there. I know that was one of the big criticisms as well, of like you capture your first alluvial and then it just kind of throws you into the auto battler if you're in the overworld, and that experience was sort of jarring for some people. And then Illuvium Zero, I've seen described as I'm sorry to say this, brain rotting a few different times, and also lacking a tutorial. To be fair, I think most 4X games, in my opinion, are kind of brain rotting. It's just not a genre that really excites me. But with that being said, what do you think about the current, I guess, difficulties onboarding people? And are there any plans to make Illuvium Zero in particular also maybe a little bit more exciting or have deeper mechanics that get people going?
Yeah. So yeah, part of the issue there is, as you explained, an idle clicker is exactly that. It's an idle clicker. It's designed to make you every minute open back up your phone and click 2 buttons and then close it back. Like, that's going to roll your brain over some time. So I don't disagree with it. Honestly, I don't. But at the same time, there's a ton of people that like that genre. And then there's also a ton of people that want to generate income. And that's what Illuvium Zero is all about. It's a companion game that feeds into all of the new games that we build and the existing ones. And that's only going to get better and better. So one of the features that's in development is training gyms. And the cool thing about this is this was a community suggestion, right? This feature had nothing to do with our game designers. And they said, why don't we have training gyms where someone can drop their alluvial off? That in the overworld, I talked about that grind of like, you got to level them up. And then once they're at a certain level, then you can fuse them. I don't want to do that, right? Like, I just don't. It's what, in my eyes, I'm like, rather just buy it higher. But so what this does is I can drop my alluvial off at the training gym and I can choose, right? There's 20,000 land plots out there. There'll be a rating system, say like, this guy's really good at training alluvials. He's super alert. He's great at clicking buttons. But I'm being a little bit facetious there. But the result of that is this guy's going to be attentive to my alluvial. And when I come back and pick it up from the training gym, it's going to be a higher level than, say, some other guy that doesn't pay much attention to their gym and doesn't have great results. So then I pay a fee because I'm like, hey, you're saving me from having to do the chore of...
That's really cool, because I think that's probably one of the most tedious long-term experiences that we have, leveling up alluvials. We don't need it really yet, but once you basically have to spam stage reruns and just do mindless, easy fights there, encounters there, just to get levels. Because in the arena you get free experience, but it's not enough. And I would like to outsource that.
Battling in the overworld, so I'll pay you X amount of money, and then the landholder's got another avenue to effectively service the ecosystem, which is the way that I see Illuvium Zero. Very easy to play, but pivotal in terms of its functionality. That's one thing that we're thinking about building. There's many other things like tournament platforms for arena where you can host those tournaments if you have a land plot, and a whole bunch of other things. But the main thing there is Illuvium Zero is meant to be your hub where other players require your land plot to do a plethora of things across the ecosystem.
And a lot has been said about the ambition to take on 3 games at the same time. And I'm curious from your perspective, whenever you look back on it now that you guys have released all 3 games in some form, do you feel like that was still like if you could do it over again, would you still be like, yeah, all three of them, we're going all at the same time? Would you maybe stagger it? Would you maybe like, would you take the same approach? I'm curious, like how you feel at this point.
God, no, absolutely not.
Okay.
Again, a lot of, I think one of the questions, or one of the things inside of that John video that someone pointed out to me, because again, I haven't seen it, but a lot of people have said like, they said this. A big thing is like their ego, right? Like I apparently I've got a huge ego, and I just dictate what's being done, and no one has any say, and that's kind of it. It's not the case, right? Like it might be a situation of potentially I'm quite confident and I believe in what we're building, but am I sitting here saying I can't make mistakes? No. Building 3 games at once was the dumbest thing we could have possibly done. Like, and I've said this multiple times, we definitely shouldn't have done that. Does it put us in a good position now? I think so, right? Now, how much damage it's done mentally, I don't even know, right? I don't even think you could add that up. But now that we're here, the way that I describe it is we've got a really good platform for all 3 games. If we ship 5 or 6 new features for each game, which might take us 6 to 9 months, each of those games is going to be in a world of its own, and it might be able to start at that point competing with its mainstream counterpart. So when I think about that and I think, okay, potentially the elections around the corner, things are going to start heating up potentially next year. If we can deliver all of these things and get these games from like a 5 to an 8 out of 10, we've got 3 games which we're bringing in players from and generating revenue from. That's a pretty unique proposition to have. So do I think in 6 to 9 months, I'm going to look back and say, glad we did that? Maybe. But right now, there's too much, there's too much baggage from that. And I think had we just gone out with 1 game first, we would have been miles ahead of everyone else because we started it so much earlier than everyone else. We could have built up our community, built another game, and it probably would have ended up better. But I don't know. It's all in the past now.
Yeah, hindsight's 2020. I appreciate.
That's fair. It's cool how he worded that. Hell no.
Appreciate that ability to be retrospective. So you alluded to, so in Jawan's video itself, I don't believe he called you guys egomaniacal or anything, but in the comments on the video, there was 2 different comments. One originally claiming to be a developer that left the game, and then another one confirming, I should put in quotes because I don't think they posted proof of their employment or anything, but another guy basically saying, yeah, I agree, I had a similar experience. And they said a bunch of things that I think were sort of extraneous, for lack of a better way of putting it. They were like, oh, they think there's going to be a Netflix show, like what an ego. And it's like, I mean, you're an emerging technology, like that's not out of the realm of possibility that at some point this might turn into a Netflix movie or something. But how do you feel about I guess people leaving the company and having this experience and feeling this way about you and the brothers? And is this something that you're aware of? Do you think a lot of people have left and felt this way? Do you think these guys are legitimate and maybe they're just trolls that are trying to add, fuel to the fire? Like, what's your interpretation of this?
I think from the excerpt that I got from someone, which I believe would have been a comment on the actual YouTube video, from what I read, I almost guarantee that they were working with us. Right? Like, I mean, maybe not. Maybe it's someone that's been told a whole bunch of information about Illuvium, but it seems as though they were someone who was working with us. And the reality is we've had 14 people resign in the last 2 years. Now, we're a startup. We make, when I say we hire autonomous people that work extremely hard, extremely long hours. And the point that I'm trying to make here is it's not easy. When you've also got a lot of these people started with tokens that they got given, and their net worth when it was locked was through the roof, and then it's down. And so again, I'm trying to impress upon you that it's not easy working for the Illuvium DAO. It is without a doubt, it is not. And, you know, on top of that, 3 games at once. They're the ones building it. It's your brain is like, now I'm working on this, now I'm working on this. And there's been so many learnings along the way that it has not been easy. Now, 14 people have resigned in the last 2 years. That's it. Now, that is for a startup, that is pretty impressive. That tells me, now there's probably 75% of those situations were people resigning to go and do better things. They weren't resigning because they're disgruntled. There's so many ex-employees that I speak to that have gone on to do better things personally for themselves, start up companies, start up new game studios. Our CTO left for that reason. He wanted to start his own game studio. So of those 14 people, I would say that resigned themselves, maybe there's 3 or 4, right? Which is not a lot. Now, the flip side of that is we've gone through a lot of people, right? Over the last 4 years, we've had to hire fast and fire fast. And that might come off as harsh and, you know, not the best situation to be in for someone that's not used to a startup and might be.
That's really cool to see the insight here from a hiring process and from an employee and boss perspective and everything. I appreciate that.
A typical corporate employee, it's kind of going to be like, whoa, what the hell is that? And unfortunately, the same type of person that would complain about the fast, frenetic pace of our environment is probably the person that we don't want at Illuvium, because it's too crazy here. There's too much work to be done. There's so much reliance on personal autonomy that if you don't fit into that, you're going to stand out like a sore thumb. And if that's the case, unfortunately, we don't have unlimited runway. And as much as so many of those people I've liked personally and I've built up a relationship with them, it gets to a stage where it's like, you aren't delivering us the value. We don't have the luxury of 10 years runway. Unfortunately, we need to move you on. Now, 98% of people accept that, and we don't, you know, throw people on the street and say you got nothing. We try to look after people as they're leaving, but you are like, to think that you're going to run a startup that cutthroat and not get a few disgruntled people is crazy, right? Like the fact that only a couple of people have come out and said something like this, I think is actually not bad, given that we've had, you know, 350 people over the last 4 years.
Yeah, fair enough. We know Amazon and Jeff Bezos and Steve Jobs and stuff all have a bunch of stories like that too. So, you know, I think that's sort of a plight of being a founder for sure. I want to ask you about the runway. This seems to be something that's contested, I guess, within the community, or at least certain people seem to have numbers that maybe don't match your own. Illuvium has, I guess, like roughly a year of runway. Some people say 9 months. I think you guys say closer to 14 months. If I'm getting that number right, I'll let you correct that. I just kind of want to clear up what the current status of the runway is. And B, I also want to ask about the $10 million that you guys raised in a Series A fundraising round recently, because it feels like that round was a lot smaller than I would have expected based on the fundraising that you had done to that point. I feel like Series A normally is pretty sizable, but in this case, it was a bit on the smaller side for what I would have expected personally. Can you speak to that?
Yeah, absolutely. So first of all, I would say to anyone that thinks it was small, did you try raising 14 months ago now? It was a barren wasteland, right? Like it was really, really hard. And we were actually lucky. So our bridging round was 10 million, and then we raised 12.5. That was the one that we closed. Would have been early this year, I believe. I don't even know anymore. Like things are a blur. But the last round that we did was 12.5 million, and it was also tough. But we ended up getting like 12 new investors that had not invested in the seed or anything like that. They were brand new, and I did that strategically because I wanted investors that could bring new audiences that hadn't really had exposure to Illuvium. And it was also done at a time where our token was, I think it's $70. And so with I think it was a 30% discount that we did with a lockup, we didn't want to sell more than that, right? Like in the end, we were oversubscribed, but it's not like we had 50 million coming in the door. We were oversubscribed to, I would say, about 17 million, around that. And we ended up taking 12.5, but we felt like the market's going to come back, and are we going to be looking in 12 months time that, hey, the token is now way, way higher. We just basically gave that away.
I remember when we had that funding coming in, and then as he said, it was $70 the token, and then it was $100, and everybody was flaming. It's like, oh, you sold off too cheap, blah 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 blah, wrong timing, whatever. And now it's at $40. So I think he did a really good job, I guess. He found a really good timing to get new investors on board. I hope the investors are still happy and hopeful for the future, like I am.
On top of that as well, you've got investors then that are sitting over us that have made a 4x or a 5x. They start dumping again. It's not a good scenario. So we wanted to only raise as much as we needed to. I also didn't want to go below 1 million tokens in the treasury, which is effectively 10%. And so that was the reason that we went with that. And sorry, I'm just trying to remember the first part of your question.
Yeah, sorry, I kind of threw a couple in there. So the other question is where it stands now. What's the current status of your runway?
Yeah, so the discrepancy is a couple of things. So firstly, I think people are accounting for revenue now. And so there are some things like in-app purchases where people don't see that revenue coming into our bank account. So it's very hard for someone to say, this is how much they're generating, because they don't know. No one knows. There's literally 4 people on earth that know that. And so they get that wrong there, because Illuvium Zero has generated a lot more revenue than you'd think. Then on top of it, we have another bank account that is an actual bank account, which isn't on chain. Now, we use that bank account to pay people, and we put lots of money in that bank account. So when you're looking on chain, it's like, oh, this is how much money they have, but there's always an excess over there. Now, we explain this to people, but there's some people out there that when you're in content creator land, and you know this, to be a little bit edgy and say, this is this is how much money they have in their Gnosis, and I don't see the revenue from Illuvium Zero, so that doesn't exist, and I don't know about the bank account, so we got to take that out of the equation. And they spent a lot of money on launch that was all marketing launch money. Let's add that into the multiple and then forecast that out from that abnormal month that was on. And all of a sudden someone's like, okay, Illuvium's got 26 days of runway. It's doomsday. It's all over. Like that makes for good content. It's good headline. It's just not true, right? So that 14-month runway is more realistic. And then there's 2 big factors in there. We need to now reduce costs, which we can easily do by reducing marketing, because a lot of that Web 2 focus that we had to just test the waters, which we had to do the game.
The last time I heard Kieran speak on marketing, though, was that they tried a little bit of marketing in the beginning to Web 2, and then they. So I wouldn't think that would still be in the equation for the running costs. But
justice to do that. We're going to pare back until.
And just to elaborate on that, the reason why he said they stopped that because it's not bringing in the numbers. The game is not at a state yet where we should market to Web 2. And I agree. Really glad that we still have most of our marketing budget ready to go in 6 to 12 months once the games are polished and ready for mainstream.
Things are looking a little bit better and the games have more features. And the other side of it is we plan to generate more revenue. So if we're reducing costs, increasing revenue, our runway is naturally going to last a lot longer. But it's not like we're sitting here with 6 months runway and it's, we're ringing the bells. We also have that last lever, which is another capital raise, which, I'm confident that we could achieve.
I heard somebody ask too about the current status of like the amount of equity that you guys still have to be able to pull that lever again. Is there any clarity you can give me there of like what the status is without being too, I don't want to pry too much, but how many more times could you potentially raise, or like how much more do you feel comfortable like diluting your own equity,
As in me personally, or
I guess any of the stakeholders that would be affected by that,
Right. Okay. So there's a couple of things there. The first one is we've got 1 million tokens. Our total supply is 10 million. So 10% of our tokens we still have. And, we could go out and sell 250,000 of those tokens. Again, I really would like to avoid doing a capital raise now because a discount on $40 is a very, very low valuation compared to what we've had. I would rather ship a whole bunch of features across all the different games, get the revenue up, see the token price follow that trend, and then say to investors, okay, now that we're at a higher price, we're willing to do a capital raise, and those 1 million tokens will go a lot further. But to just, for argument's sake right now, if we were to sell them all on the market, we would have $40 million worth sitting there. Right now, so that's one thing. The second thing is
only 10%. I thought they had more, but I'm really not the most informed person on this stuff. Can they ever get more, or is it only gonna be the same or going down? Because they're buying back tokens, right, with the revenue distribution. I guess they're distributing the revenue to themselves, and that's how they increase. Because for the 10% of the tokens they still have, so they get 10% of the revenue distribution, which is then just going to increase their tokens held, right? But other than that, I don't think we increase any more tokens that Illuvium is holding themselves.
Revenue distributions. A lot of people have invested at much higher prices than where we're at right now. And so these revenue distributions that we do, if we generated just under $1 million in our first month, we're only burning around $1.4 million a month. So we've nearly canceled out all of that spend, and we're getting close to break even in month one, if you factored in that we weren't sending 80% of that back to people. So one thing which would be like a fail safe is we could go to the investors and say, look, right now we need to focus on, we need survival is paramount. We go to those investors and say, you're going to earn no money in revenue distributions for this first 6 to 12 month period, but it allows us to ensure that we get the runway that we need. And then we'll give it back to you either pro rata, which we could do, or we just say from this point on, we will start revenue distributions, and immediately.
Basically like not a safety pool, which is fair, I think. If it comes down to survival, right? Like no, with the choice of stopping revenue distributions for a little bit, or the project is dying, I think the decision is pretty clear. But this is the last lever they will pull, right?
People who are like, well, they're going to run out of money. We're at least halving that burn with one single thing that investors would be insane to say no to, because it's like, do you want a little bit or do you want all of it, but at a later stage to ensure the safety, right? It's not an easy equation to work out to say, you know what, yeah, let's let them cook and then we'll get more later on. So then as a final thing, which I say to some people when they really piss me off with this question, is I'm sitting on myself about $25 million. Now, my other brother is sitting on about $22 million, and we're both co-founders. The other one is left, which is another story. So I can't speak for him, but we've got something like $47 million that we could sell if worse came to worse. Now, people are like, you wouldn't do that. And it's like, okay, I'm going to let my DAO crumble so the tokens that I own are worth $0 and I get nothing just because I want to say I'm not selling these out of principle. No, like, I'm a logical person. We would sit down, we'd say, we've used up our tokens, we've used the revenue just.
Isn't it crazy? I don't know if it's crazy, but in my mind, it's like, I thought Illuvium was holding way more tokens themselves, but Kieran and Eric are holding more tokens than the DAO itself, or the project itself, or Illuvium Labs. I don't know if that's normal or not. Just shocks me.
Distribution play, like.
But I 100% agree. They would no questions asked. If they needed to for survival, sell them. They're gone.
There's no other card that we can pull. We need another 12 months runway. We are selling our tokens. Maybe we do a deal with the DAO and say, we'll sell our tokens. And if this is the difference that makes us start generating shit tons of revenue later, then you guys can pay us back those tokens. That's only fair. Or we could just say, well, we're going to have nothing, so we may as well sell and give that money to the DAO because we believe in it. And that is our last sort of fail-safe that we would absolutely enact.
Big respect for that. I'm curious. Animositas sent me a message saying that some of the information that I was getting was incorrect, saying that you guys did have a lot of revenue. Basically, you were approaching that break even that you were talking about. And I just wanted to follow up and confirm, is this revenue that's strictly from things like fuel costs that people are sort of being taxed by in the game? Or is there anything that's being mixed in there that's like an NFT sale or like packs that are limited that you won't be able to capitalize on in the future? I'm just trying to figure out, is that revenue like month over month consistent potentially, or is it just like a one-time thing that's being kind of lumped in just for clarity?
The old NFT sales, sell a few more ships type deal.
Yeah.
No, this is recurring revenue that is coming from people that are playing the game. There is a small portion of cosmetics. It's a big part of our ecosystem, but they're not even usable right now. So the demand for them, I think we sold about $40,000 worth of cosmetics in the first month, which is less than 5% of what we did in total. So no, it's coming from reoccurring revenue from people that are playing the game, their normal in-game revenues, and yeah, that's where we're at. But
please.
Sorry, I will say we're not close to break even with revenue distributions.
Okay.
We're not even close to we're about 4x off where we need to be with revenue distributions. All I can think of is maybe he's talking about if we stopped revenue distributions, then we would be close to break even. But I'm not sure. You'd have to clarify that with him.
Okay. Yeah, I really appreciate that point of clarity, because that is important. About what amount of shares or rev-diz do you guys get out of every dollar that's brought in, and how much goes to the investors, just for clarity there too? As in, again, the DAO or me? I guess the organization that ends up funding the studio itself. Yeah, whatever you classify that as.
So the way that it works is to get revenue distributions, you need to be staked. Now, automatically, our treasury is staked, and I don't know the exact figures, but I think it's about 17% that the DAO is making based off our staked tokens.
Okay.
And
they have 10% of the total tokens, but not all tokens are staked. So they have 17 of staked tokens. That sounds better.
DAO is what ends up funding the studio itself.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay. And then I know that there was a thread, or it wasn't really a thread. It was just like a slightly longer than usual tweet that sort of went viral maybe like a month ago, where a user outlined their onboarding experience. And it was like, you know, I try to get Passport and then I can't do that. And then I tried to wallet something. I'm sorry, I should have pulled the tweet up so I could have read it back to you exactly. But long story short, people are a little bit frustrated with some of the onboarding experiences. That's even with Immutable Passport, which I know is trying to obviously solve a lot of this. Do you yourself have, I guess, any plans as Illuvium to smooth out that sort of Web 2 into Web 3 onboarding experience? Or is it mostly like, we got to let Illuvium, you know, IMX figure out their passport situation and make that experience easier? Like, where's sort of the burden of responsibility in that, and what's your thoughts on it? Because I'm sure it's extremely frustrating for you. People come to play the game and have this experience. It's got to be, a nightmare.
Before Kieran says it all again, because I have a hard time adding something to this, because to be honest, it's an amazing interview. You guys weren't lying when you were teasing me. Sam is doing an amazing job interviewing Kieran, probably one of the best interviews I've seen in my life. And Kieran does an amazing job answering the questions. So before Kieran says it all, I think obviously it's hard, right? It has always been hard for Web 2 people to come into Web 3 and start playing a game. I think Illuvium will be there, or is probably already there, where it is, even though it's hard, it's still the easiest it has ever been in Web 3. And now we are very close to getting credit card onboarding enabled, where you can just buy fuel with credit cards, which is a game changer, right? This is game breaking, I would say, and not game breaking. It's a game changer to be finally able to just pull up your credit card and buy fuel and start playing this Web3 game. So yeah, bright times ahead.
Yeah,
it should come very, very soon. Like, we're not talking months, we're talking weeks, I think.
You've got no idea. It's literally the bane of our existence. The people messaging us saying we're trying to spend money.
Sorry for not focusing so much on the chat, Phobos. I see you there. I just thought it wasn't really adding to this conversation. I think, and unlocking higher level caps, I'm not so sure about that. I think it's already really hard to get the highest level cap, and you already have that aspect of stats making your Illuviums more powerful to the others. So increasing a level cap would be something like where you could make your Illuvial even stronger again, like adding another layer of pay to win on top of that. Oh, please. Okay, you weren't talking about what you said before, because I deliberately ignored that, which I usually don't do, you know me. But listen to the credit card feature. Yeah, I'm excited what he's got to say about it.
In your game, and they can't, is a very, very hard thing to bear. And
it's the same with like what was mentioned at the very beginning, right? That optimization is so low that many people that want, they only got a phone or they only got bad computer, and that's the next layer where you can't play because of Web 2 to Web 3 onboarding. I don't think it's the easiest in Web 3. I would just assume that as soon as we get being able to buy fuel with credit cards, I would highly assume it's the easiest in Web 3. I have not heard of another project where you can just, just buy the in-game fuel, the in-game currency with credit card, and that's it. Like, that's on the standard of Web 2. It doesn't get much smoother than this. Other games have better onboarding. You just connect your wallet and you can use your funds. In Illuvium, you need to deposit to the wallet and only after transfer to Passport. Same with withdrawing. Yes, but what you're saying there, it's easier for Web3 people. to go play other games than it is for Web3 people to go play Illuvium, because there's a few extra hurdles in there. But that's the audience I would not be worried about, because they're going to figure it out. Okay, it's 1-2 more steps to get everything onto IMX Passport and transfer it into Illuvium. What I was talking about is for a non-Web3 person that has never played crypto game before, a Web2 gamer to come into Web3. And I think with IMX Passport, which is the main enabler here, it is easier than in any other project that doesn't use IMX Passport. And yeah, now once we get credit cards to be able to purchase fuel with credit cards, then I think it's getting very close to being on standard, on pars with Web2 gaming. That's a feature that Web3 games in 2021 already had. It's a game changing for sure, but it's not innovating. All right, I'm misinformed then. Which games did have that? Because I never heard about it. I thought this would be something that would be mentioned in discussions like this many, many times. I thought so far you always had to, you know, get your crypto from an exchange where you have to sign up with all your personal data, yada, yada, yada. I never knew there was a way around that.
The reality of it is that some of those issues were our own, which we've gone and fixed. Some of those issues were IMX. And the good thing with IMX is we were pretty much their first partner, at least their first really, really big partner. And we're talking, you know, over 4 years ago when we first walked into their office. And so we've got a very good relationship with those guys. And it's very...
Isn't his brother the founder of IMX? Or at least a higher up? Kane, right? Isn't he a main guy in IMX?
Very much in their best interest. There's not many games external to their own sort of family. They've got like Gods Unchained and Guild of Guardians, but outside of their family, there was no other game as big as ours that was launching. And so we've had our issues with them putting a lot of focus into ZK EVM. We started building our systems prior to them saying, hey, we're going to switch our focus to ZK EVM. There was a lot of promise.
I have to watch a video on ZK EVM. It always confuses me.
That I feel like we're getting there, but there's been a lot of friction where their teams are focusing on this brand new thing, which it makes financial sense. It's a business decision, and I can handle that. But it sort of left us a little bit in the lurch. Where we launched, we had a huge amount of players that wanted to get in. We had a huge amount of revenue that we were generating. We're sort of sitting over here like, you need to make this work because this is your statement to say, hey, Illuvium's on Immutable. Their launch was really successful. The infrastructure and the logistics of how players get into this ecosystem is really, really smooth. And that didn't happen, right? Now it looks poorly on us. It looks poorly on them. We obviously kicked up a massive stink and said, what are we going to do about this? And we began fixing these issues. But, you know, I'm not going to lie to you. It definitely was a bit of a struggle there.
I can't name a lot of Web3 that had credit card integration, didn't really play them. The one I can think of, Lost Relics, they had it in 2019 already. My question there would be, is it like similar to Illuvium where you actually buy the fuel and then with this, like the in-game currency, and with this you can get the NFTs and everything? Or maybe would it be like separate from the crypto Web3 NFT experience, similar to an in parallel, where you can obviously buy some credits, but everything you buy with those credits are not NFTs and not really integrated in that Web3 aspect of the game?
And there are still things which we're trying to get fixed, but that relationship is a very old relationship, and it's a good one. And we will get to the bottom of fixing those onboarding issues, and even like little quality of life things like offering the ability to onboard with credit card. That's going to be delivered probably sometime next week. That's a us thing. And so little things like that we do over the next 6 months to fix that funnel will hopefully be in there and make it 5 times more smooth. If that Web 2 customer starts going, hey, I like crypto again, what are the games here? We should be ready by that stage.
Awesome. I want to move to something that's a little bit more personal. I know we're running out of time, but this is kind of the last section of questions that I have for you. I just want to preface this by saying I also work with my brother, and I have for a very long time. We grew a YouTube channel to 13 million subscribers. We still host a show together to this day that is a weekly show. I know that frequently I don't agree with him, and I'm still responsible for sort of answering to the things that, you know, maybe I didn't agree with, and that's a very difficult situation to be put in. So I just kind of wanted to clarify a couple of different things about the current status and sort of where we've come from with your brothers. So Kane Warwick in particular, I believe was only an investor, right? He never worked with you guys. Is that correct? Yeah. Okay. So Kane invested, and then he recently unstaked I think like $4 million worth of ILV tokens. And he said some of that was to pay or to help Synthaman, who was like fallen on hard times, who was the ex-treasurer of Synthetics, which was like a little bit concerning to me. I guess you would expect a treasury person to not, a manager of a treasury to not find themselves in a tough financial position where they need money.
Would randomly. You? This is crypto.
Fair take. But I just wanted to get clarification on that in particular. Do you have any insight into that? Do you even care? Is this something that you're, I guess, tapped into it all, or it's just completely separate? Like, that's Kane's business. He can do what he wants. It's his tokens. It's his business.
No. Kane and I are very, very, very good friends. You know, he's looked after me in so many different ways. He got me back into crypto. I've worked.
Sorry for pausing. Yeah, you guys have a few examples for games that do credit card integration. So I wasn't aware of that. Sorry for that. Not like the best it has ever been, but we're gonna get to a good point where it's not as hard as I remembered it when I tried to get into it. We're in a good way to at least get on a good industry standard for Web3.
With him in several different startups. We're very similar in our thinking, and he didn't even mention that to me. And a bunch of times he said, you know, like we joke around. He's like, "Fuck you, you know, when are you going to launch this game? This is ridiculous." And I say to you, dude, you bought the token at $1. Like, you owe me money. And we joke around, right? Like that. We've got that type of relationship where. You know, if you heard the way that we talk behind closed doors, it's about each other. It's pretty funny. So I think what's happened there, and I didn't actually realize this until literally just as you're asking that question, Synthaman has been a big supporter of synthetics, obviously, synthetics, and he's been a big supporter of Illuvium. And I think it would have been one of those things where Kane was like, God damn it, this guy shouldn't have gotten liquidated, but he supported me, he supported my little brothers. I've got to sort of do something. But I reckon it would have sat, and I'm speaking for him here, and I probably shouldn't be, but I think if it was like me, he would have been like, I need to help him, but I'm not going to help him using my own money. Now, I'm not going to sell their tokens. What I'll do is I'll just make it public that I'm giving this guy tokens out of my Illuvium stack because I haven't sold any for 4 years and I'm not going to sell any more, but I don't think I should have to sell my own ETH or Bitcoin or SNX to do this. And the issue here, because a lot of people are like, why did he unstake 150,000 of them then if you only needed to give him 1,000 or whatever he gave him? I don't know how many, but this is what I've just realized. Our system doesn't allow you to take from the vesting contract for if you're an investor, you have to unstake the whole lot. You can't say, I want to unstake like 250 ILV. So I think that's what's happened there. But it would be funny. I don't know if he's restaked them. He did it right before the last revenue distribution, which probably would have cost him, I don't know, like 20 grand or something, maybe even more, maybe like 25 grand. So this is the type of guy that he is. He's helped us out so much. He probably would look at that and be like, yeah, I was giving it to you guys. So you don't, your disgruntled investors are already paying for enough of your, your woes. I'm not going to take more away from them. That would probably be something like his response.
Interesting. Lots to unpack there. You also have Grant Warwick, who also worked with you, I believe, on the art side, right? Grant was the lead artist. Is that
art director? Yeah,
art director. Excuse me. And he left, I believe, for health reasons. I'm really sorry.
I'm gonna jump into chat real quick. My vesting time in staking is almost finished. If I unlock the token, I stop getting revenue distribution. Do I need to keep revenue distribution? So once your vested period that you vested it for, I think the longest time you can lock it up for is 12 months. Once that runs out, they're still being staked. You can remove them. You can unstake them anytime. They're still generating revenue. But as soon as you unstake them, obviously you're not getting any more revenue distribution. But you don't need to lock them up again. If they're unlocked and you can do whatever with them, but you decide to keep them on the staking platform, then you're still generating revenue distribution. But you have maybe your 2x waiting for the 12 months of locking them up. Plus, you have the freedom to unstake them any moment. So that's the ideal position you can get in. For example, I staked a portion of my LB coins for just a few months because for different reasons. Most of them I have for 12 months, so I get the highest weighting. But those I only have a bit of weighting, which annoys me now, right? Like now I have to unstake them. I have to restake them for 12 months to actually get the full revenue distribution that I can from that portion of my LB tokens.
Sorry to hear that he was struggling like that. I know whenever your family member is sick, it's hard on everybody. And he moved on about 5 months ago, and it seemed like, at least from the outside looking in, it was largely well received because it was for health issues and not like him being like, oh, fuck this project, I don't believe in it anymore, But then he recently sort of entered back in the sphere, so I'm hopeful that he's feeling better. But it was a little bit in an odd way. He's launching what I think can only be described as like a meme coin or project, and he said it's like a joke.
It looks like the ultimate meme coin. It's so degenerate. I've never seen anything like that. I'm in the Discord. It looks fun, but funny to see.
Project with joke utility, so at least he's being upfront about that. But it's called Dorge, and it's basically a blend of like Dogecoin and Goblin Town. And then some people in the community were a little bit upset because he was like, I don't think he was, but some people in his circle were like DMing Illuvium community members and trying to get them on board to invest and to retweet stuff. And they felt like it was a little bit, I don't want to put words in people's mouth. I don't know what they felt like, but they were a little bit upset about it. Is that something that you are connected to? Did you give him permission to do that? He also, I should add, clarified to somebody that he didn't ask his team members to go after people in the Illuvium community. That was maybe something that they did on their own. And this person was Synthaman, who is also obviously connected to Kane. So somehow it's all sort of, I'm sure they're all buddies because they all know each other or whatever. I'm going to just kind of give you the floor there to just say whatever you want on that situation, because it's a little bit weird.
Look, I've got no idea what that guy does. I don't see anything online from him. I haven't spoken to him since he's left Illuvium. I wish him well, all power to him. He can do whatever he wants. He doesn't need permission from me, doesn't need permission from anyone. People can make up their own opinion on what that looks like, leaving a project and starting another one. And, I don't have any opinion on that. I don't care. I'm too busy to, as I touched on, the stupid decision of launching 3 games at once comes with a lot of headaches. Me worrying about what my brother is building in terms of a meme coin doesn't even enter my head, honestly.
Yeah. All right. Fair enough there. the last thing I want to do is just kind of give you the opportunity, if I didn't touch on anything that you've heard and been frustrated with and want to be able to speak to, the floor is yours. I really respect and appreciate how open you've been and that you've been able to acknowledge some fault and also give a clear direction of where you guys are moving forward. And I just want to say thank you for your time, Kieran. And of course, if you want to say anything else, the floor is yours.
Yeah, no worries. So I think it was Annie who reached out and said, "Hey, just letting you know, these guys have run a space and it got pretty heated, and there was a little bit of dissing of Illuvium and potentially even of me and whatever." And it was light, and I was like, what's new? Of course, there's going to be people that talk shit, and I talk shit also. It's totally fine. Being Australian, you don't take too much to heart. I can tell you that. But my God, can I give it back? And so I said to this person, I was like, well, Annie actually reached out and said, "Hey, do you want to jump on a podcast?" And I would do it anyway, right? I honestly do not care what has been said. It's no issue for me whatsoever. But just want to say, look, we have humility, right? Like, as you can see here, this is not a show. This is me as raw as you're going to get me. And we've made so many mistakes. I think if you don't make mistakes going through this type of journey of ups and downs and crazy decisions and all of this kind of stuff, it would be the luckiest thing in the world. Now, unfortunately, we're not that lucky. We're lucky enough, but we're not that lucky. And so, but we're not pretending. We're not out here saying like, we're perfect, everyone else sucks, and that's it, right? There are so many good gaming studios that are building now. 3 years ago, we were pretty much the only studio that I thought was in this space that could actually build something. Now it's a different story. And so you're not going to hear me come out and say, every game is trash or whatever. It's changed. And for 2-3 years, I've been saying, like, we need other games to go parabolic. Like, that would be so good for us. It's not even funny, right? Like, there's so many gamers that are going to come into this space over the next 5 to 10 years. If we get multiple games in different genres actually breaking into mainstream. So when I saw Parallel, I was like, yes, like, we need more of these. And I feel like, and I was like this in the start, right? Like, I was very much like, we're going to be better than you. And I almost was like, I hope they're not successful. And it was a stupid take. It was really bad, right? Like, because instead of me looking at it like, if they're successful, they bring us up. Even if we're not as good, we get brought up in this bucket. I was looking at it through a poor lens. And I can admit that, and I can say I was 100% wrong. But now I see it in other people, and I'm like, dude, like, the hate that you send our way, and like everything is trash and nothing is valuable that they've ever built, and then they go out and shill 4 or 5 other games. It's like, I hope those 4 or 5 other games do really well, because if you've been here long enough, you understand that, right? And you know that one game being successful helps us all. And so, I don't look at other people and say, how dare you, and what an asshole. Like, I'm too busy to do that. But at the same time, I get it, right? Like, I get that mentality of like, we're competing, screw you, we're going to shove your head underwater and we'll live and you'll die. Like, I totally get it. I just thought it would be an interesting AMA to come on and have a chat with you. I don't think I've spoken to you before. And so, just wanted to, clear the air and say this is what we're doing.
Yeah, really, really appreciate it, man. Wishing the best for you and the Illuvium squad. Excited to see some of the updates that come, Q4, early Q1, Q2. It's a wild world that we live in. And, as people say, like, a rising tide lifts all boats. And I think that's kind of what you're alluding to with Web3 gaming. It's like the competition is needed in some stages, and then other times it's more about camaraderie. And I think at the end of the day, if you guys win, we'll all win. And if somebody else wins, then you guys will have a better chance at winning. It's just like, let's let's get there together. But Kieran, thank you so much for your time, man. I really, really appreciate it, and hoping we can talk again in the future, man.
No worries. Thanks, Sam. Really appreciate you having me on.
Sheesh. What an AMA that was, eh? Crazy. Really, really good. Really, really good. I say thank you for both of them because I'm butchering their content to make it my own. But hey, I wanted to look at this for a while. I'm glad we did it together. And yeah, I got nothing to say. I hope I didn't pause too much. I tried to give a little bit of my perspective for some things that were said, but hey, most of the times they said it all, or Kieran said it all. It was really good. Really good interviewer, really good answers. And I liked how honest and truthful and no bullshit agenda they both had. Like they were all both really straightforward, just getting down to the nitty gritty and speaking their mind. Mostly Kieran because he was answering the questions right. That was cool. Wow. It's nice to see. I'm gonna maybe rewatch it again and try to take some pointers on, because I really liked how Sam was was phrasing his questions to Kieran. So maybe I can learn a thing or two there for my upcoming AMA with Aaron. I do want to improve my speech more. I think it's a bit harder. I'm sure he's native English speaking. I think it's a bit harder if you're not native speaking to, you know, always say exactly what you mean, but I think I'm getting there. It's getting better and better. That was really good. Yeah, that was solid. I'm like, I could go to bed now. You know, like you feel like a hot bath or something like this, like a day at the spa. That's how I feel now. I feel like content inside. So heads off. That was amazing. That was really good. Oh, that's nice to see. I think we're gonna call it here. It has been 4 hours. I don't know. If you guys keen, we can jump in 1-2 arena games until I'm tilted, but I think it's gonna happen really fast. Otherwise, I'm just gonna be back tomorrow. I also gotta, you know, change the sheet of my hedgehog. I think he pooped again. And give him another hot water bottle to lay on so he doesn't get cold. Ooh. Yeah, I think we're gonna call it here. I'd like to keep the streams not too long, a little bit on the shorter side, but yeah, hopefully keep doing it every day and be on a streaming streak again. I'm all free for the weekend, so we're gonna keep going. And I see you guys tomorrow with some more Illuvium dailies. I'm sure we can think about stuff to do. Probably gonna buy a lot more Illuvials, try to fuse them into perfect ones. And mainly I want to get onto the mission of leveling my best Illuvials, the ones I use most in the gauntlet. Because it cannot be that far away until we go into more PvP incentivized, into tournaments and stuff like this. I'm very hopeful for the next few months that we... Man, once we have ranked, once we have tournaments, once we have constant PvP action where I will just be playing every day, all day, trying to rank up, trying to become the best in the game. It's gonna be hard, but it's not impossible. And I'm glad you guys are with me on this journey. Thank you everybody for tuning in. I see you back tomorrow. Have a wonderful evening, or morning, or day, wherever you are. Adios, amigos.